You're listening to episode 188 of The Graveyard. Oh no, 187 of The Graveyard Show.
Oh,
I keep getting mixed up with these numbers.
To be fair, we did have a 188, 186B, A, and then a 186. So no wonder you did. It's fine.
Yeah. It's
So actually,
understandable.
technically,
Yeah,
you're
it's
right,
wonderful.
actually, Scott. Technically, you're right.
let me apologize for mocking you, Scott.
No, but technically,
Nice.
you're right.
Nice.
It's 188th episode.
Yes, that's true.
You
Yeah.
just go with that.
Technically, it's the 189th.
because we dropped
If not
one?
192, because there's been 2 or 3 that we have lost over the last couple of years.
Did
But
we?
who's counting? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for live,
Or else they're held in my secret evidence vault whenever I need bad information on you guys.
for the, well,
That
that's-
time Alan started crying.
Oh, that's... yeah, no, that's every cinema trip.
So, for sake of clarity, this is episode.
187.
Okay, great, cool.
Yep.
Welcome.
Cool. Welcome to 187. How are you doing, lads?
Good. The sun is shining right now. Cannot wait to get
Yes, it
outside and
is.
enjoy it. I got a
And it's
hammock,
warm.
and I've been enjoying
Ooh.
my reading in my hammock. It's been a good thing.
We have
Nice.
a swing chair at the back.
But is it a
and
hammock?
I have done...
Is it a hammock though?
No, but it's a swing chair. It's a swing chair.
Brutal.
Like the one, like the swing chairs like you used to see in the Waltons television series.
No.
I-
Metal, not wooden.
I have a family of foxes who live in our garden, and it seems like every time we see them, there's another cub. So it's now, I think it's a mum and 4 baby foxes.
Ah.
One of them came up the other night and was like tick 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 on the door beside my on the door beside my couch. I really wanted to bring it in and make friends with it, but it didn't. I didn't do that. I thought that'd be a terrible
And
idea.
it has the voice
yeah.
of George Clooney. We're like, what?
Look at you want to be a Disney princess talking to all the animals, Scott. That's fantastic.
Well,
Isn't that everyone's secret desire?
all Disney princesses should have beards like yours, Scott.
I think
That's his face mask.
I think it would be a dream for animators.
I mean, a friend of mine bought 2 lobster-eared rabbits at the beginning of the COVID-19 quarantine, and 5 days later he had 8, and then he separated them quickly, and now he has 13. Now he has 13 of them.
Oh, it's that Father Ted episode. I just have 2 rabbits. What?
he literally said, "It's true. They breed like rabbits." I mean,
Oh,
wow.
rabbits are rabbits, like, right? Well,
That's
Wow.
truly incredible. I love it. Love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so keep an eye on those foxes, Scott.
go
Yep,
Bugs.
I will. I will keep growing my menagerie at the back of the house here.
Okay.
Cool. So this week, we wanted to talk about learning to apologize well. How many times in the past? I think this. I don't know if it's particularly true in Christian circles, but I feel like bad apologies are endemic in Christian circles. For you guys, what does a bad apology look like?
Not apologizing.
Okay, all right. I mean, that's definitely a
the worst.
baseline
Yeah.
for whether or not something's an apology. That is the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The worst
on a scale
apology
of
is
1 to 10.
the worst apology is no
So-
apology at all.
Yeah. Someone literally turning around and looking at you when you're going, "What are you doing?" And they just go, "What?"
Yeah.
That is a bad apology.
For me, the second worst apology is when someone goes, "I'm sorry you feel that way."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an apology.
I'm sorry you're offended by that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Because the one of the things that is so bad about that kind of an apology is what they're actually saying is, I was right to do what I was wrong, and you were wrong for feeling the way you did about it. So not only am I not apologizing, I'm place any responsibility for blame for negative feelings that you have is at your door.
and then
Yeah.
they walk away. Then that person tends to walk away thinking, "I did the right thing. I'm going to go tell my friends and family how I apologized." No, you're not going to tell them the exact way you apologize, because then they would realize it wasn't an apology at all.
I'm halfway to my apology Boy Scout badge, because I did another apology.
I
I'm sorry.
acknowledge your silliness Yes.
That's right. I'm sorry you feel that way.
Oh,
Get out.
yeah.
Yeah. My added to that one is the I'm sorry if.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'm sorry
Oh.
if you, and so it's the conditional apology, and so it is maintaining rightness, but again, like the other one, it does tend to tend to leave the responsibility for any hurt at the feet of whoever the victim or the person who is hurt by it is. I can't stand the I'm sorry if apology. Yeah.
No.
Very close third after the if.
I think we're at the fourth or fifth, but just add it to the list.
Okay, yeah. The next one would be I'm sorry, but where there's a case
Yeah.
Case of I'm sorry, but actually you, and then it's a role reversal onto, it's help me help you. No, I'm going to say this to encourage you to say sorry, because really that's
what's actually happening is
that's a
social convention means that I need to say the words I'm sorry. But wait till you see the words I'm about to put after it that make it very clear that I am not the problem and I am not sorry.
But I have a solution for you to apologize.
I also like this one.
Yeah, exactly.
I also like this one, which is like, I guess you need to hear me say I'm sorry, so I'm sorry. It's like, why bother? Why bother?
I used to when we were kids, and mum or dad would say, "You need to apologize," and you'd stand there going, "Sorry." He goes,
question mark.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. I mean, really? And then it'd be a case of you need to say it like you mean it. And I goes, I can't mean it now because you're telling me I have to say this.
Yeah.
If I want to mean it, I'm going to say, it's but it's also interesting how some people apologize that they may not. I mean, it boils down to there are some who'll say the words, but they'll just keep on doing what they have been doing. So the apology means nothing. Whereas there are some people who actually can't say the words, but in their actions, they really do show that they do apologize and they're sorry. I mean, like it's funny. We only joked about this recently with our kids, how the kids pick up about how we say sorry. So it's not necessarily the words that are said, but some of the things that are done to clarify that shouldn't have happened. We need to change this. And that was a really insightful dinner. So yeah.
What did you learn?
Yeah, I know. We learned lots.
Why don't you share it on the podcast?
Yeah, that's not gonna. I just don't want to embarrass my daughter. Oh, sorry.
I also love when there's like disclaimers, like when people have disclaimers first. They'll say things like, I guess I need to apologize about X, Y, and Z. So there you go. What? I didn't hear any apology there. I just hear you acknowledging that you need to do something, adding a disclaimer with some asterisks and terms and conditions apply here, and then walking away quietly. Homer Simpson disappearing into the brush. What is that?
You may have misunderstood what I was trying to do or say. Sorry for your misunderstanding.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's
I'm sorry for misunderstanding. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're not smart enough to have understood what I really meant.
Because I'm very clever,
Classic.
Oh.
What's interesting, because growing up. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Give me growing up.
Well, like growing up, we whenever we said we were sorry, that wasn't enough. The person had to say, "I forgive you." So one scruff of the neck would be like, "Say you're sorry." I'm sorry. The other person was like, "Say you forgive him." I'm not say I forgive him. Well, we're not going anywhere till you forgive him. So we had to stay, but the scruffs of our necks hanging there like, and you'd be like, "Jeff, just say you forgive me." I said sorry. Then we were doing these packs just because we knew we'd get out of there quicker if we just come together. And so actually it worked out. I mean, that's why I worked in reconciliation for 3 decades now, being in Ireland. No, but it's just like
holding people by the scruff.
Well, because in
I
the end,
forgive you. I'm sorry.
Well, in the end, it almost didn't matter that we meant it, because we came together in order to beat the bigger evil, which is the parents overloading us with,
Oh, that's fantastic.
Interestingly, though, that whole thing is definitely part of my family now. And so
Mm.
or my life. So when I say I'm sorry to my wife, which happens never or daily, choose the past. I'm actually not, I don't feel forgiven actually until I hear her say, I forgive you.
Mm.
Right. So she's had to learn that about me. While in her family growing up, apology, big, huge fight. And an apology was a cup of tea made the next morning.
Right.
Cup of tea, done.
Mm.
And to me, that's
The
just
old
like,
forgiveness cup of tea.
I know, but for me, that was like, what? I'm looking around the kitchen going, that was a huge blowout you guys had last night. Now you're just having tea. Yeah, we're good to go. We're good to go now. I'm like, no one said I'm sorry or that you're forgiven. And so having
Yeah.
to even having to learn the languages of forgiveness that exist even
Mm.
in my marriage has been quite an interesting, complex thing.
It's
Well,
that
that's so
Mary
interesting that the
Poppins element,
difference.
isn't it? It's that Mary Poppins element of a spoonful of sugar helps that medicine go down. Yeah, total shift of this will solve everything. Yeah.
It is interesting to me the difference between what you're talking about there, Greg, where growing up it was about the words that were said, whether you meant them or not, and then in your wife's family where it's actually about the actions that are done that communicate something that is that is not said, because actually there's almost more reconciliation that has happened in the unspoken act rather than there was in the forced words that were spoken. And so the difference between what's happening above the surface and below the surface can actually be huge, which is why it's so important to be able to understand each other's stories, and also to understand like what's triggering for people as well. Like me, because sometimes you're doing your best to apologize and you don't understand what the other person's experience has been. And so what could have been, where you can end up in a situation then where your repentance does not ring true or does not connect, because it's not the way in which they deal in forgiveness. And oftentimes that then helps you shine a light on yourself as well and say, how fully then have I actually demonstrated or communicated my repentance, particularly when it is on me. If I'm the one who's hurt you, it's on me to communicate this in the way that you need it communicated, not you to hear it in the way that I need to repent, like, because the one who is the one who has transgressed, it's their responsibility to make peace.
I just finished watching The Last Dance, the whole Michael Jordan biopic, and it's
brilliant. It was fantastic.
Superb. But one of the things that was really interesting was what you're talking about there, Scott, the dynamics of the relationships, of how one person would do one thing, but then what an apology actually looked like. So an awful lot was made out of Dennis Rodman, who would just seem to go AWOL at certain times in a season because he had to go and let off steam and do what he did. And Phil Jackson was being asked, how do you cope? Because he's very much going against the grain and he's doing things he shouldn't be doing. Because he just needs space, but he's okay. He understands and he gets the dynamics and the space given to different characters on the team as to how they would respond with saying sorry, not necessarily saying it just with the words, but actually with their actions of, okay, now I need to show up and show I can still play the game while not letting down my teammates, even if I haven't been there for practice. And I think it's the importance of actually understanding our backgrounds as to what that actually looks like. And even though my language might be different to who I'm talking to, it's knowing what's being picked up, so actually what I'm trying to say is heard with the ears that actually of what I'm trying to actually say legit wise.
Yeah.
I mean, I think both are important. I mean, if there's nothing more frustrating when someone chokes out an apology, and I'm not judging their intention, but I'm judging their intention, is that and that you can tell they don't mean it, but they're just saying it because they have to say it. I mean, I'm a professional at noticing these things because A, I did it as a kid, and B, my brothers did it to me as a kid. So, I'm pretty, attuned to it.
You're well trained.
Yeah. But then to not have the follow through of the action which exhibits it, it has a way of undermining even the weakness of the apology originally said. And so I know growing up, even now, like when there's an apology in the household and then it's followed up with a hug, or it's followed up with, here, you can borrow this after all, or let's go for a walk or whatever. When it's followed up with an action, I think for me now it's become a both and. It's become mean what you say and then do something about it, and then we're good. Because I think a lot of times it's just easy to say words and not mean it. And sometimes it's easy to do actions and not mean it too. So for me, it's a both and, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Have any examples of good apologies that you experienced where you really needed to hear that from somebody, or somebody apologized in a way that was really meaningful to you? Or maybe a way that you learned to apologize?
Yeah, I think.
That was
I don't know what just happened.
There was a massive silence when you asked that question. There was a massive silence, and we were all like going, "These bunch of people who've never been apologized to well. That's horrible." That's horrible. I certainly would say that I lack in having good apologies presented to me for things, which is hard because it's good to have good apologies. I've learned from bad apologies and from my two fathers that good apologies are not only important, but necessary and needed regardless of how long it takes. So really quickly, both my fathers have passed away. My adopted father, at one point, when I was working with him in the late 90s, in the middle of an ice cream shop called the Cone Zone, great name. I was the manager and he owned the place. And,
no flakes there.
I'm making a 99, seeing how tall I could get. And I look over, my dad's he's crying. And I'm like, what's going on, Dad? And he's like, look, I'm sorry. And then he just basically said why he was sorry for the last couple decades of, it wasn't always great in our family. And I was able to say, you're forgiven. That we hugged and our relationship changed totally. My biological father, when my wife and I went to visit him, when our daughter was she was very young, younger than a year old. And we went back to visit him, and he struggled with addictions his whole life. And we arrived, and it was evident that he was still struggling with addictions. And we walked up to this after meeting each other in an airport, and me trying to. So a year later, I met him in an airport, and I said to him, "It's going to be okay." And there's no forgiveness. Is like, I forgive you. No, I forgive you. But that was, it's going to be okay. It was kind of a moment. We hugged each other for the first time in my living memory, and it became a moment that built. So sometimes forgiveness needs to be built over time. I get that, and I've experienced it. And in this situation, when we arrived at his house with our daughter, we went up to him, and my wife handed my daughter Chloe over to him to hold, the first grandchild he'd ever held in his life. And unfortunately, the last one he held in his life. And he basically looked at her and looked at me and my wife and said, "Thank you for the second chance." That was enough. So sometimes it's also understanding that sometimes forgiveness might not look the way I think it should, but understanding the person and everything it takes in them to come to that place made both those situations beautiful examples of good forgiveness. And so I guess I'm trying to learn consistently that it might not always look the way I think it should look, but that doesn't mean it's not the best thing and a good thing.
Yeah. And a lot of it comes down, I think, to where you are at in terms of whether or not you're at the point of wanting to close the door on it or make peace or move on together.
True that.
Because when you know that somebody's wrestling with it, that even if they don't give it a perfect apology, if you know that it's as much as they're ready to give, you can go, okay, I can meet you in that place.
We can build on. We can build on.
I can meet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to be there. Even if you haven't named everything I thought I needed you to name, even if you haven't taken responsibility for the things I needed you to take responsibility for, even if I'm seeing the seeds of the acknowledgement of the hurt and the desire to move on, I think I can work with you in that place to go from there.
Mhm.
And then the times when we're not like that is oftentimes when it's not about whether or not you said you were sorry. It's about whether or not you recognize the fact that you hurt me.
Yeah.
Whether or
Yeah.
not you believe me when I say that hurt, whether or not I believe you're actually on my side, or you're still fighting for your own rightness. And that's, so there's almost like there's an undercurrent, there's a deeper level to it that's really helpful for us to understand, even in terms of our own self-awareness entering into it. It's like, do I want to forgive this person, or do I need, like,
Yeah.
do I need blood? Like,
Yeah.
like, am I still at that point where,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it's that ownership, isn't it? Like, I mean, like if I'm going to own my hurt, too often, and I'm sure it's the same in so many cultures, but when someone has offended us, we kind of no, it's fine, it's grand, and because we don't want to actually acknowledge our hurt from what has happened.
Yeah.
But it's also then how we can actually own the apology of saying, you know what, that shouldn't have happened, and that went beyond where it should have been, so I am sorry. And it goes into, like, I mean, even in how I think as churches we talk, or we teach, or we discuss repentance, let alone forgiveness. Because in case, well, I'm sure God can use this, and God can deal with this, and God has this, and just trust God. And there's no ownership on the behalf of the person who's actually caused the hurt, or that actually needs to say, I'm sorry, and I need to change. Like when Jesus says, repent, for the kingdom of God is near. Change your mind. Change your mind. It's not just sorry, but it's Greg, what you were saying earlier on, that and and I think we can forgive people, but I do think as well it's wise to realize, if I'm going back to the same party every single time, and I know I'm going to get hurt in this particular place every single time, and they don't realize, they don't acknowledge, I need to be aware of my own boundaries, and there's a self-awareness and there's ownership in that. So I can forgive you, or I can apologize, but we need to make sure we don't put ourselves in this scenario again, where actually there are boundaries that are in place. So yes, I forgive you. Oh, cool. So do you want to meet up again next Tuesday? No. But that is done. And sometimes that's a sort of action that is needed with forgiveness or with repentance.
Yeah, and where the church, I think, has been incredibly guilty on that is that the church continues to ask victims to forgive like Jesus, while not inviting those who have done wrong to repent like those Jesus was ministering to.
Yeah.
And so when we do that, what we do is we perpetuate the hurt that people are experiencing without holding people who are called to character to account. And that is, and I'm not even sure what we're protecting when we're doing there, because we're robbing the aggressor the opportunity for growth, change, and development, and we're robbing the victim of the opportunity of healing in order to protect what? The status quo? Difficult conversations? Like, it is an egregious sin for us to commit by doing that. And I don't think anyone consciously does it. I think when you examine it through that light, you go, wow, like, this isn't some nice thing that we need to do because it's in the Lord's Prayer. Like, we need to do this because it makes us better, because like it transforms individuals, communities, and the world. Like there's layers upon layers to which the practice of the seeking and the giving of forgiveness is restorative and transformative.
Yeah, like it is almost a case of the church turns around and goes, sorry, what? It's not just in the prayer? Is that not why? I mean, it's. I remember having a conversation with some people saying that's why we have the peace before kind of coming into that time of communion, because actually that's the time to go to someone saying, you know what, we've an issue here. Like, I mean, Scott, I remember years ago, you and I having to have a conversation, in relation to healing, for how we both felt about Greg. But just no, that
the reason we had that conversation is because Greg made me go and talk to you about it.
but I mean, actually, the healing that comes from that, in either owning forgiveness and repentance, being able to say sorry, but actually, you know what, it's having that space, which is really, really good and important, because I think you think of the things that you can miss out on because things are left unsaid, or that there's no healing or there's no response to what is actually right.
Yeah. The advantage to having older people in your your life, no offense, lads, to talk to you about this kind of thing. It is the way in which we get called out on stuff. I remember when I first started hanging out with Greg, I think this is probably around the time that I was 22, 23 was when these conversations were happening. And it was really funny because I would be talking about like different issues that I was facing. This kind of connects to the regret stories in 185 when I talked about regretting everything I did from 18 to 25 and the things I didn't do from 25 to now. But I would be talking to Greg, and I was actually beginning on this journey of self-awareness at the time and learning about like, you know, the ways in which my story contributed to how I saw myself, which, you know, dominoed into different decisions. And I realized in my conversations with Greg, as I was using my story as an excuse to remove my culpability for what I had done, rather than seeing it as a reason that contributed to what I'd done, but where I still remained responsible for my actions. And that for me is another part of apologizing as well, is that like you can explain yourself during an apology to say, here's what I did. I'm naming it. I'm naming the hurt that it caused you, not conditionally. I'm naming that it happened. And I'm saying that I recognize your pain and the thing that I have caused you to endure. I'm going to explain what went into it so that you have an understanding of me to the extent that you're comfortable with. But that explanation is to lead to further understanding and building of our relationship. It is not to remove my culpability. So we don't explain why we did what we did in order to remove our responsibility. We do it to generate greater understanding of what happened and to explain what we did without removing our responsibility for it. And that has been a difficult lesson to learn for me, because it was so helpful to almost use self-awareness and false humility as a protective shield from vulnerability during apology. And I've since had to learn how to actually take that away and say, no, I can explain myself to a certain extent, but I need to make this apology about them and not about me. And so that was a tough lesson to learn. I had to call someone and apologize for something last week. And so I was reflecting on beforehand, how do I give a full-throated apology here? And the way that it went was basically, okay, so I'm calling, quick catch up. So something happened a couple of weeks ago. I was upset at the time, and I realized that in the way that I responded to the situation, I made you feel this way. And I can understand why you felt that way, because I put you in that position. Here's where I was at the time. But I realize now that even before that situation, there was actually ways in which I could have stopped this from happening. And at the end of the day, the relatively small amount of conflict that we had as a result of this was not your fault, and you didn't put me in this position. Actually, I did, because there was a very clear way in which I could have avoided it at the beginning, and that responsibility is on me. And I'm sorry for the way that my lack of choosing to bring it up at this time led to me hurting you at this time, because both the beginning and the end of this are on me. And so I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. And it was a really good conversation, but I don't think that comes naturally to me. I think I had to actually learn how to do that and learn the real practicalities of it.
I mean, I think that we're constantly learning in this area when it comes to forgiveness and apology and repentance. I mean, even my therapist would say to me, look, bro, just because you're ready to forgive and you're ready to hear someone forgive you, it doesn't mean they're ready to actually own their junk when it comes to what they did to you, how they hurt you. They might not be ready to own that. They might not own that forever. They might not own that forever, which is tragic. But you still have to find a way of being okay with, if not creating big boundaries like Al said, but being able to go, just because I'm ready to hear. Sorry, can you hear me all right? My connection's unstable. It says on my screen here again. But that just because I'm ready to hear it doesn't mean that the person who hurt me is ready to, or is self-aware enough to actually apologize. And that's always the trickiest thing for me in any circumstance. It always has been my whole life. I'll be like, but all I have to do is say they're sorry, and then we can be, then we can move on. And that person, meanwhile, is like, I don't see anything. I don't see a reason to apologize. Why would I bother? And so, and it's just like this. And then you have to live with that conflict in you and be okay with it. I always wrestle with that space between being ready to hear I'm sorry and the acknowledgement that it may never come. And that's always something that's totally
Mm.
off.
Mm.
I think it's interesting. Like you're sharing that, and I'm thinking last year on vestry, because I think even within church leadership, how we our interactions and our decisions. Like so, there, for many churches, I think on some level it's still the same way. Well, if the rector says this, well then that's how it is. That's how it goes. And so last year I'd made it. I was going to put forward an idea or a thought. I said, okay, I'm thinking we should do this. And I gave the date, the time, and said that what we were going to do. And it wasn't even a discussion. It was a case, I'm thinking we should do this, and that should be it. And that's a case closed, and that was fine. And one person after came to me saying, listen, I'm not really happy with that. But I can understand why you're wanting to do that, but that's all fine. And I realized at the time, I've made the presumption here of, well, I've decided this. I don't even know what they've done in the past about this. But it's right because it's right. And I realized, oh, that's terrible. So I said to the I am so sorry. You know what? We need to have this as a discussion. Investor goes, no, I don't want to make a deal out of it. It goes, no. Listen, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And we went back, and I genuinely thought, people will see why this is a good call. And I was wrong. I mean, people didn't see why it was a good call. So it was a case of, you know what, this is too soon. This is not the right time to do this. And actually, you know what? No, we won't do this. And someone at the meeting had said, no, that's probably wise. And I said, no, I think it's wise not to do it, but I think we need to think about the reason why we're not going to do it. But I do apologize in relation to, I should not have just come in with the decision and that's it, case closed. And I think it's understanding our space in owning when we see something, even if somebody else hasn't seen it, because that person, they were trying to say they didn't agree with the decision, but they were trying to do it in a way that wasn't going to be offensive publicly and whatnot. I'm like, no, I need to own that. That was not right on my behalf. And supporting leadership over it, and it wasn't grand.
Well, that is a huge issue of character, actually, that sometimes we talk about being able to apologize or being humble enough to apologize. From the, when confronted with your own mistakes, are you willing to apologize? As if that's the definition of character. Whereas like what you're both raising there is almost like, no. Are you proactive apologizers without making a victim come and tell you that you have hurt them? Like, because we don't need somebody else to tell us that we were in the wrong to know that we were in the wrong all the time. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable that there's sometimes we didn't realize what we were doing or we didn't realize the hurt it caused. But we are capable of seeing before being told that we have done what is wrong and seeking out to apologize. I had that recently when I borrowed some gear off somebody and I dropped something. It was a battery that kind of came apart. I was able to fix the casing. And I went to them, and I went to the person who I borrowed it from, and I was like, "Listen, I'm sorry that I kind of dropped this, but I think it's fine, and we'll replace it or whatever if it doesn't work." And that was like my apology. And I texted them about a day and a half later, and I went, I was so nervous about having taken your gear and not taking care of it that when I apologized, I minimized the potential damage that I had done and the way in which I had broken your trust by taking on your gear. So I just wanted to say, I'm really, really sorry. I pride myself on taking better care of things than that. And I didn't mean to take for granted in the way I was just nervous about the fact that I'd done wrong. So I decided to compound it by doing wrong twice. And so like, it was a really good lesson for me in trying to figure out, okay, so what are my driving factors when I come into those kind of conversations?
I have found myself in situations where I've had to confront people and say, look, I don't know if you realize what wrong you've done here. And that's really difficult because though it's important, it actually, when it comes to reconciliation, it's, seems like a key component. It's to humbly approach someone with your understanding of a situation, but you have to be okay with not having the outcomes that you might have expected or perceive or hope for, and that takes a lot of. I mean, just it's tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
because you think you're being the bigger man by going and confronting someone something they did wrong to you, and they're like, A, I don't see it, or B, oh, sorry you feel that way, or C, I have no idea what you're talking
I'm
about.
sorry, but
Yeah, but and then you're going, oh no, I've just made this worse. So it's also having the wisdom of knowing when to go and not to go, because I think there are cases where you do have to go and let someone know that was wrong, because they might not ever see it. But that's where having intermediaries have been a good thing in my life, because they're able to say, what seems to be happening is this. Do you both acknowledge this? Whether it's counseling that I've had with my wife, or my wife and I've gone to counseling, where the counselor has gone, what you're both saying may be true, but the situation is you're not hearing each other or seeing each other or literally really hearing what each other are saying.
Yeah.
And you're able to go, now I'm sorry.
It reminds me of a conversation I was invited to up in Glen Cree, the Peace and Reconciliation Center. And there was a load of people who were there who had suffered massive tragic loss through the Troubles.
Yeah.
And one particular conversation, and it was such a haunting conversation of people who had lost loved ones in the Enniskillen bombing. And they found Gordon Wilson's forgiveness unbearable, because they felt he's forgiven. I know that's probably what I should do too, but I do not. And I feel I'm the bad person, because I can't forgive the person who took my daughter or my father. And it was so eye-opening, kind of going, it's Greg, what you're talking about, like where people are in that place of being ready, not being ready, just because somebody else has forgiven or someone else has apologized, does that mean I also now, that's my timeline, that's how I have to deal with it?
Right.
And it's like that. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of someone apologizing, and at the time going, this is fantastic, this is wonderful, here we have this time of reconciliation. And then a few years later, being in that same scenario, or where hurt is being brought again, thinking, does that completely abolish the apology that came in a while ago? Do I hold them to account on that? Or do I realize, no, I think they probably meant at the time, which was great, and we had good times, and now things are crap again. And so it's understanding and having that self-awareness of, we're all flawed and we all have areas, but I do think it's being so wise as to our actions or our reactions, or how we are proactive in our space of grace on both sides, of being perpetrators of grief or actually responding to the grief that is caused. Because I think so often people just go, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize. I go, yeah, was I wrong not to make you realize? And we tie ourselves up in knots. And I think that's where, again, going back to the ownership of, we need to own our mistakes, but also, listen, I might have misunderstood this, but I've been really hurt by what you've said or what you've done. And the character of nature and of heart, I think, does come to the fore, as to how people respond.
Yeah, I think going in where possible with the benefit of the doubt is key, because you want to be able to say, listen, I know you've hurt me, but I'm gonna assume this wasn't from a place of malice. I'm gonna assume there must be some kind of mitigating circumstances in it. And part of what we're saying as well is like a normal human being wouldn't have done what you did, so I'm assuming there's contributing circumstances. But you're putting it in a much nicer way than that. That's actually saying I am doing my best to understand that there's probably a contributing story in some way, shape, or form. But also once you have done that, if their response does not acknowledge your pain, does not take responsibility for their actions, even if unintended, it's okay. It's okay for you to say, okay, well, this is what I needed going into forgiveness. Like I know what I needed. I know that I've got some of that, but maybe not all of that, which means that we're not there yet.
Mm.
Like I'm processing through, and
Yeah.
all of us have to learn to forgive people who we're never going to get apologies from, and that's okay. But that's a long-term process. It's not an instant thing that can be demanded of us, because the inner world is too complicated for that. And so we consciously forgive until we don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least try to. Yeah.
I find it interesting that a lot of times people see forgiveness as a weakness. Oh, if I apologize, it'll make me look weak, or
Yeah.
it'll undermine my authority, or any of that other BS that exists, and I think that when it comes to, like, for me, it's be quick to apologize, be quick to forgive, and then work it out. Grow up and say you're sorry unequivocally, and then, and I'm not talking about, obviously there's levels of the complexity and all this, like you're saying, Scott. There's just so many levels of complexity. But I do find that if I've said something, which I do, which was unkind, or if I stop and go, I'm sorry, and then I walk away and I go, figure out what just happened there. Why did you say it? How did you say it? Why are you sorry for it? Now act like you meant it. It tends to, and so I think your self-awareness piece, Scott, is very important. It's that thing of, you know what, I could have done that better. I'm reflecting on it now, so I'm going to go back again. And I actually genuinely, the people who I respect the most in this world are the people who, with all humility, are able to say, I'm sorry. Full stop.
Yeah.
I don't go, oh, what a weak person who has no authority. That person, I'd never work with them again. I think the exact opposite. I think, well, that's the type of people I want to be around,
Yeah, because what they say when they apologize is they say, my relationship with you is more important than how other people perceive me. And
exactly
that is the strength of a good apology, is that it is actively loving somebody.
Yes.
And as much as, but we tend not to, vulnerability is so scary that we tend to, and our egos can be so fragile. It is far easier to die on the hill if we were right the whole time and allow the relationship to disappear than to seek the vulnerable path of loving well. So it's a hard road. And I do not love it. I do not love it. Yeah.
No, it's certainly not an enjoyable thing. I don't wake up in the morning going, I really look forward to apologizing to someone today.
Who's on my say sorry to list today? Well, lads, I must apologize. I have a meeting starting very soon, so I actually need to run.
Okay.
Right. Good to see you both.
Well, be good. Yeah. Good to see you.
Have a great week. Bye.
You too. Bye.
I never knew we had it all. Every broken heart came back to.
You want to be a Disney princess talking to all the animals, Scott. That's fantastic.
Well,
isn't that everyone's secret desire?
all Disney princesses should have beards like yours.